Welcome to the Financial Advocacy Podcast. I'm your host, David Kinder, the tax-exempt wealth guy, registered financial consultant, and chartered life underwriter, and my co-hosts, Michael Moffat and Kurt Gibbs. This is a disclosure where we say you can't hold us accountable for any actions you take on your own, just like all financial entertainment shows. We are not providing legal, tax, or securities investment advice of any kind. We do provide general investment information for educational purposes only, and we will discuss alternative financial strategies that do not contain or include securities. You can view all of our disclosures and disclaimers at our website at www.financialadvocacypodcast.com. Look both ways before crossing the street. Let's get started. All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Financial Advocacy Podcast. We are here, and Kurt, have you heard that intro already before or no?
I have, but it looks like you've tweaked things a bit, and it's much better, much faster.
Thank you. Well, I do tend to talk quickly, and for that purpose, it worked for me. And Kurt, I don't remember if you know this. It's been a while since we had you on, but we are everywhere now. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever they're calling themselves now, Amazon Podcast, Audible Podcast, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and all the rest.
Yes, wonderful.
So we've cracked the code. So we are out there, and in a way, welcome. And I'm sorry, no, we're welcome. We might have some fun with the stuff we talk about.
And I don't know how I got to. I was just going to say. On that note, don't forget to hit that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, the bell button, any button you can hit that makes it go up in the algorithm. Hit it.
There we go. Yeah, hit the like, share, comment, subscribe. Just don't push my buttons. No, okay, that's a different topic. But it's kind of an intro to the topic at large a little bit. I don't know how I got this idea the other day, but I thought, we should have a podcast about money and relationship dynamics. And that's a very different thing than all of the math and science and the facts we talk about in the past, which is good. We need to get the clarity behind everything. But at the same time, sometimes feelings override, and sometimes the relationship dynamics override certain decisions because it just feels better to do things a certain way. And there's a way of communicating these things. And I was thinking this through. Maybe I was thinking about it for agents and advisors that if they have a really bad appointment, and this is my definition of a bad appointment, you're talking to the financial spouse, the one who really gets everything, right? Or the one that really understands most things financial. And then you've got the other spouse that largely doesn't. And you're only talking to the financial spouse. And then at the end, the financial spouse turns to the non-financial spouse and says, honey, what do you think? And typically, that's called, we're going to use some stereotypes, guys, because typically it's the man who understands this stuff. The woman typically doesn't, generally speaking. And even in same-sex couples, you got the same dynamics, right? There's one that usually understands the stuff, the other one that doesn't. And yet, the one that doesn't understand is where it hinges our sale. Right? And then do you have to go all the way back to the beginning and try to re-explain everything? Now they feel like they're being talked to as a child or something. And like, why couldn't you understand this as we were talking about it before? Then everything erupts as they're leaving your office, or for us, leaving our Zoom meeting. And you've completely spoiled it because we didn't direct our attention to who's the ultimate beneficiary of our planning, which is generally the non-financial spouse. The financial spouse wants to take care of others, want to take care of our spouse, take care of our children. And yet, if we misdirect our communication, it just doesn't go anywhere, unfortunately. And they blew it. And so I want to share this video. It's a humorous video, but it's a video that really nobody understands. In fact, it's literally called technical jargon overload. And this is what I think it feels like to be the non-financial spouse sitting in with a financial advisor of any kind. You guys, if you haven't seen this, you're going to get a kick out of it. Here we go.
Here at Rockwell Automation's world headquarters, research has been proceeding to develop a line of automation products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With customer success as our primary focus, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of an instrument that would not only provide inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. Such an instrument, comprised of Dodge gears and bearings, Reliant electric motors, Allen Bradley controls, and all monitored by Rockwell software, is Rockwell Automation's Retro-Encabulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive diractance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panametric fam. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O deltoid type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator. Every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremi pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters. Moreover, whenever fluorescent score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal depleneration. The Retro-Encabulator has now reached a high level of development, and it's being successfully used in the operation of Milford trunnions. It's available soon wherever Rockwell Automation products are sold.
You guys ever seen that one before?
I don't know, but I think I'm about to buy some stock in Rockwell Automation. This is cutting edge technology, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we were watching an OSHA video, safety video
Right?
from 1981. Yeah.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that particular one is that the whole thing is fictional. That is not a real product. That is not a real thing. There's a whole Wikipedia page about the Turbo-Encabulator and how it's a fictional thing. The whole thing is just, it's BS. The whole thing's BS. Yet it sounds so official, and we think we're communicating, but that doesn't mean that it's being received right. I have no idea what they said for the whole thing, which is, in fact, you guys know Tony Filippone. He's in the Facebook group. He starts off his seminars with that video, just to say, if that's what you're expecting here today, you can leave now. We're going to talk in English, something like that, just to make sure that people actually understand what we're trying to do.
I think that is how a lot of people, whether they're the decision maker or the spouse that understands financial products or insurance products better than others. I think us as insurance agents and, other financial planners start describing stuff. And that's what it sounds like to other people that aren't in our industry. And that's when you see people and their eyes kind of glaze over, and then they're like, whatever you say. And that isn't good because they have no idea what they're getting or doing or buying. And so, when it doesn't do what they thought it was going to do, your inhibited capsule turbine-regulator thing, that's where the problems come out. And that's where you have the real issues, is when people make decisions and they don't understand what they've just purchased.
And because they don't understand it, that what ends up happening is, I don't know, sweetie, you decide. And, and they feel like they're being worn down into making a decision, as opposed to coming to a new understanding as to how they're really going to be better off. And that would be the ultimate way to go. I want everybody that I meet with to figure out that I can help them make them better off, or at least that they understand if they don't want to do something, they know why. Either way, I'm okay with either way. I just want them to make sure that they understand that it's easy to communicate, that they understand those things. But yet the non-financial spouse, all the things are being done generally for their benefit. But that doesn't mean they understand it, which is also a reason why in the industry, we've got a lot of, different surveys and things like that come out. And one of the things that happens is that a lot of spouses, once they're widowed, they change financial advisors. And they change those financial advisors because they want someone that they can actually communicate with, rather than, well, my husband did all of that stuff, right? When that's what they did everything. Now they're like, okay, now he's gone. Not only are you grieving, now you also have to try to figure out what's going on. Well, it's too overwhelming at that point. But there's so many different things here. So the first thing is that we have a lot of agents and advisors, consultants that listen into our podcast. So the first thing that my best advice, and it's not a tactic. So many times, we have practice advice. It sounds like we're trying to teach you how to make sure you make the sale. It's not about that. That's a great byproduct. That's what we all want. But it's all about making sure that everybody's on the same page. And so when you have a group of people, and anytime that you have more than 2 people, it's a group. And I learned this in scouting. I was a scout leader for 7 years or so. And when you're going on a hike, you cannot go faster than the slowest hiker, right? You all have, that's got to take the pace. So you direct the conversation and making sure that the understanding is all there so that you can all be on the same page. I remember earlier on, asking, do you happen to know what a stock is? Do you know what a bond is? Do you know what a mutual fund is? And just making sure we're kind of on the same page. And, by doing that, you're leading everybody along to make sure that we're all together. But despite that, that's the advisor working with the couple, right? That doesn't mean that everybody's on the same page once they leave the office. They're going to discuss everything from there. And often discussion and disagreements about money is a source of contention in a marriage. Now, of the 3 of us, all 3 of us, I'm not going to air our dirty laundry, but let's just say this. Of all 3 of us, 100% of us have been divorced once, and 2/3 of us have been remarried. So that's you guys. You guys have gotten remarried. I have not as of yet. We'll see. No one on the horizon. Who knows? Whatever life has in store. But it's funny because I'll give relationship advice, and then I'll say, look, what do I know? I'm just a divorce guy. Which has that double meaning. Because look, I'm trying to give you the best advice I can, but hey, I've already messed up once.
Well, I think things have changed the mindset with a lot of people. I feel like over the last several years, when it comes to including the spouse or getting them on the same page, from the financial stance has changed a little bit. Well, I don't know how many years. I don't know if it's 10 years, the last 20 years or what, but there was a time when you really had one, maybe you just had one breadwinner, one household income, and the spouse was at home. And that shift has taken place over the last several years. You got it's taken 2 members of the household to make things go, and they may not be on the same page as the financial person in the household, but they're contributing to a plan. And I found with several people that that, for instance, the husband may be handling both sides of that equation, but she just knows that she needs to contribute to it because eventually she's going to have to rely on those funds down the road to create retirement income. So they're both involved, but yet there's still just that there's always going to be that one main the male or the female, and like you say, most of the time it's the male that's going to take charge of that, account, so to speak, and try to navigate what's the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it is that it comes from the notion that, especially when you have a single income household, right? The stay-at-home spouse, and you have the breadwinner. But as part of being the breadwinner, it's part of our job to provide. And if we're going to provide, we're also going to do the planning, and we're going to make those decisions based on providing for, our spouse and providing for our children and such. And so it has been in the past, especially a one-person decision possibly. But at the same time, at the end of every meeting, you've got to have both spouses at the meeting. Make sure that you're both on the same page. Because, again, the money disagreements can be very combative at times. And usually when there's a lot of disagreement, I'll back away and say, maybe this isn't the right time to make those kinds of decisions. There might be other things going on. I'm not going to make commentary on people's marriages, but I do know that when they're both on the same page, at least for what they want to accomplish, how they want to do it might be at odds. But if they both want to accomplish certain things, we can work together on that. But if there's too much disagreement, this is probably not the time. You might not need to figure out some other things. And often, and I think it's not quite fair that, usually, and we're going to use all kinds of stereotypes here again. So the woman is blamed for overspending, right? They go to the mall all the time. You know what? Let me tell you, when a man overspends, our invoices might be smaller, but those numbers are so much bigger. We overspend at the dealership. Okay. That's the kind of overspending men like to do. We overspend, guns. We overspend in hunting gear and stuff.
Your hobbies. Yeah, your hobbies, for the male is always going to be higher. It seems like, for the people that I kind of encounter, it seems to be the trend, I guess you would say.
Absolutely. I mean, granted, maybe when a woman typically comes back from going shopping, the receipt might look like a CVS receipt, really long, but at the same time, all those things are $1. When we go shopping, we have a smaller receipt, but the thing is $10,000. Now, that's a whole different kind of overspending here. So that
So basically, what you're saying is that women nickel and dime you to death, and men just blow you up all at once.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this podcast is now over. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I think we're killing it now, but we're having fun. Again, we're talking about all the stereotypes. Let's bring it all out. We're not going to be that politically correct, but we are trying to be respectful within stereotypes. We're not calling anybody out, unless we're going to call me out.
Well,
that's different.
It gets deep into the weeds a little bit with the conversation of what we're talking about here. If you dig into this too much, but from a spending stance and seeing how people spend money and comparing that to, the spouse and the husband, I'm amazed at how much more money people will spend when you're talking about just spending money from, they find something on sale and they think that's a reason to buy it. You know what I mean? And I think, women, not picking on women, but I think they feel like they're doing the right thing when they're shopping for a discount or getting a discount or buying something on sale. But, is it really on sale? Or, you paid $9 and, 49 cents for it, but wait a minute, we've got tax on that. So, that CVS list that you've got or whatever you're talking about, that's that long list of receipts, it adds up. And at the end of it, once again, as we talk about it in different areas, the tax on what you're purchasing is really it's a killer.
Are you talking about girl math, Kurt?
That's what I was going to bring up. That girl math thing going on,
Sounds like Mike has got more. He's got more data to back this up than the other two of us here.
Well, the difference is that Mike and I are both on TikTok, so we see all this different ideas of girl math and whatever. We're not saying personal experience because we are exempting your spouses. Okay, this is not a microcosm of your guys' life. We're not doing that. But the girl math thing. There's a pair of shoes that's normally $300, but now they're $100. So you get to save $200. But you know what? I had to bring this other thing back to the same store that was $150. So I'm getting my $150 back for the return to go ahead and buy the $100 shoes that I still didn't need in the first place. That's girl math, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many people really, of the people I kind of sit across the table from time to time when it's a husband and a wife, I'll say for the most part, most are really on the same page when it comes to, especially if it's an older couple. They've lived long enough to see, the peaks and the valleys with money and how it's going to affect them long term. And if they're in their mid 50s, they're starting to think about that. So the spending of their 20s and 30s and maybe even their 40s has really started to kind of take a back seat, and they're more focused on the end result, the distribution, if you will, of their lifetime and what they're trying to accomplish.
And get rid of that. Okay, so yeah, generally speaking, the men have been, and let's call it a patriarchal society. Men have been the ones that take care of the financial direction and taking care of the home in the marriage. Women are certainly no less. I've always called, once I heard this phrase from Zig Ziglar on an album years ago, that women are the executive household manager. They might actually be the ones writing the checks, paying the bills, actually, getting the bills paid. They may not necessarily be bringing the money in. Obviously, every relationship is going to have their different dynamics, but almost all financial planning decisions are made with women and children, orphans, essentially, in mind. It all comes down to that. Health insurance is to avoid bankruptcy and to provide care. Retirement planning, how many lives are we try to provide that retirement income for? It's not just yourself, it's for you and your spouse. Life insurance, duh. You got the beneficiary forms, right? Disability, so that we're not a burden on other people. Long-term care, so that we're not a burden on others, and we can maintain and retain our dignity, and particularly with family members. We don't necessarily want our family members to be our caregivers. Investing capital for the future, so we can deploy small dollars now to have large dollars later. All of that is all for providing for women and children and making sure that everybody's taken care of. And even for same-sex couples, non-traditional couples, the same dynamics are there almost all the time. And even if both are pretty good financially speaking, one usually has a little bit higher acumen than the other. It just tends to be
or
that
maybe
way.
even a little bit more discipline.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, if everybody was always disciplined and such, I mean, where's the spice of life at that point? You got a very boring couple. So you got to have something in there to spice things up.
Yeah, and traditionally, I know there's numbers out there that back all these things up that you can dig into and find spending habits of one versus the other. But I would tend to think that the month we're in right now, November, into November, December are months that are just kind of put to the wayside just because of the spending aspect and how people view Christmas and things like that. It's typically you've got your retailers are going to mark some things down, and they're going to try to get you into the store to shop and to spend money. So budgeting and things like that probably take a severe second seat to the months of November and December.
Yeah, and retailers, as we know, it's not just marking things down. Sometimes they mark them up first, then mark them back down to the same price before the markup. I think Best Buy figured.
It's funny too. I was in Home Depot here locally just a few days ago with my daughter, and looking at the Christmas lights. She was wanting to put some lights outside in a couple of different areas for Christmas, and one of the employees at the Home Depot, he made the comment. He said, if you can wait till after Christmas and you can really find some deals on the Christmas lights. And I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose, though, doesn't it? He goes, it does, but he goes, it's good for next year. But he said, we actually have a double order that came to our store, and he said we're really going to mark some things down after the first of the year. He said because we just don't put it back on the, they don't keep it for next year and put it back on the shelf. They liquidate it, as much as they can. So
yeah, they can't keep that stuff on their shelves, even in the back room. That costs money. That could be going for other things, for inventory turnover, which is what all these stores are all about. They got to get the stuff in, put on the shelves, and turn that over as quickly as they can. So instead, what they want to do is turn that inventory over to us at a discounted price so that we can keep it on our shelves and in our attics and our garages until next year. And then we forget that we've got it. So then we go out and buy the other stuff. And then after we put all the lights up, then we figure out, oh, we already bought that stuff.
I also think that, it's kind of shifting gears a little bit. I think it's a really good, if you've got the ability to sit down with some folks this time of year and catch them in between their shopping and their Christmas parties or whatever, it's a really good time to make some connections with folks and talk about some planning going forward into the new year, into the January February time frame, and getting some business on the books as far as appointments and meeting with folks and doing some planning, because year end gets here before we before we know it. Then it's tax time, right after Christmas. People are going to be thinking at the end of January, it's 1099 time or it's W-2 time. So it's it's a it's a Ferris wheel of sorts of things that just continually circle.
Well, there's always a reason to not meet.
Yeah,
When we
always.
think about that, always. So, let's take August. Let's start with August because August is the month right when school starts, right? Oh, can't meet now. I got to get the kids ready for school. We're getting everything ready for back to school. Then when school started, oh, I'm still getting my kids acclimated because I got to help them with their homework to get launched up properly. Oh, we got Halloween coming up. Oh, we got Thanksgiving coming. Oh, we got Christmas. Oh, it's the New Year. Can't meet now. And then all of a sudden January comes around. Hey, the New Year just started. We're getting things back. The kids are getting back into school now. Oh, it's April. Hey, we got to figure out our taxes. We're delaying so much. And then June comes around. Well, we got graduations, Father's Day. No one cares about Father's Day, but we're going to use that as an excuse. Father's Day and graduations, and we're going to start doing our summer vacation planning. And all of a sudden, we're back in the same part again. There's always a reason to not meet with someone to do the type of planning that we should be doing all along. And at the same time, all we got to say is, look, let's start for 20 minutes. Let's figure out if we even like each other for 20 minutes. And if we like each other, we can either keep the conversation going or let's reschedule another time for later. And if we don't like each other, hey, it was only 20 minutes. No big deal. But something's got to give because, and I use this as an example because someone will say, I'm just too busy. Look, I get it. I've got a very busy personal life myself. But if I may, the people I meet in their 70s wish they met me in their 50s. And the people I meet in their 60s wish they met me in their 40s. And all we got to do is carve out a little bit of time. Let's make sure that it actually makes sense for us to get together, that I can make a difference. And if I can make a difference, great. Let's see what we can do. And if I can't, no problem. We'll part ways. But it's so important that at least to carve out a little bit of time. And carve is a great word to use this time of year because we just got through Halloween. So there was carving pumpkins. We just got done with Thanksgiving. We just carved a turkey. We didn't do turkey, so we did spare ribs. So we're non-traditional around here.
I guess for Christmas you could carve a ham.
Yeah, well, at least slice a ham. Either one that works. And
I don't know. I was trying to think of something you could carve for Christmas.
We can whittle away on the nutcrackers and other things.
That's not carving.
Ornaments.
Everything's non-traditional in California, Mike. You know how that works.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Oh, that works. But with all of that, one of the things that sometimes comes up, it's rare, but sometimes comes up where with a couple, they might both want separate financial plans. And it's interesting to think that way. And the only thing I would wonder is, are they filing their taxes as married filing separately or not? Because sometimes doing separate financial plans is really kind of almost a commentary about the relationship. Why aren't we planning together as a married couple, as a unit? And it concerns me when those things happen. It must have been an article I read or something that must have brought that up. I mean, better have a financial plan than none, but far better for everybody to be on the same page. You're all working towards the same goals, the same objectives, rather than I've got my advisor and my spouse has their advisor. I don't see there being much of an advantage there, unless they're different specialties. That's different. So you might have an insurance agent, and your spouse has a stockbroker. Okay, fine. You could do that kind of thing. But being on separate pages, I don't think rarely works out well. Alonzo, thank you.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. And the one thing it seems like, I won't say it's common, but a lot of times you find that the female, from a working stance, she may even have a better benefit plan as far as where she's putting money than the husband does, just because of the work environment. I mean, if one's a blue collar worker, one's the white collar worker, and if that tends to be the female, a lot of times she has a much better plan from a employer plan perspective than sometimes the male does. So it's just like you say, you got to get on the same page.
Yeah, for example, this was like 25 years ago, my folks were having a harder time. And so my mom got a job at the Tustin School District. She was never a teacher or anything, but she got a position there. I think it's an instructional aide of some kind. And she got really great health insurance. And so she made sure at the time, my dad was running the Orange County Courthouse cafeteria. First job I was fired from at the age of 13, by the way. Thanks, Dad. But great, great learning experience. But they were able to change over their health insurance over to my mom's plan because it was far, far better. So sometimes just coordinating those things to help make more informed decisions and maximizing and synergizing our dollars wherever possible is a much better way to go. It just like everything, and we joked about this last week or the week before. We said we should call this the "It Depends" podcast because everything depends. There's no one size fits all. It all depends. We just got to figure out what's happening there. And so Alonzo says, yeah, it depends on financial status. I know some celebrities who file married filing separately. Okay, awesome. And of course, he chimes in saying he uses his wife's health care. It's way better than I could offer myself. Absolutely. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Taking advantage of pooling benefits wherever possible to get the most out of our current situation, whatever that may be. And I think the other part too I was thinking of was blended family considerations. And because sometimes with blended families, especially second marriages, well, that's primarily what we're talking second, third marriage, fourth marriages. Some people just, I don't know. I think after the second marriage, if I have a second marriage and it ends prematurely, I'm not sure I could go through that again. But making sure that the assets that you do have are properly marked to where you want them to go, because you don't want to show favoritism necessarily to your previous family versus your current spouse, or more favoritism to your current spouse than the children from your last marriage. You don't want that. I remember when I first got started with a mutual insurance company, and I heard about this story about a guy who only sold to car dealerships. And this guy said, "You're going to write me a check for $10,000. And here's the reason why. The reason why is that after you pass away, 10 years later, you want your family to still come together every Thanksgiving around the same dinner table." And that basically he's going to make sure that happens, because he's going to make sure that everybody's taken care of on an equalized basis. That doesn't mean everybody's equal, but they're all going to be treated properly with, the business interests, other assets, things like that.
And I think this goes back to what we talked about, was it either last week or the week before, with doing kind of your annual review stuff to make sure that you have the coverage where you want it, covering the proper people that you want it, where, maybe you were divorced and your ex-wife is still the beneficiary on your old life insurance plan, right? So that kind of all ties back to that, where, even if no changes are made, it's still good to sit down and at least look at these things maybe once a year and make sure that everything is still set up how you want it, because a lot can change in a year. So
yeah, or just repaper it. And I that's a kind of a technical term. It just means fill out the paperwork again, even if it's confirming the same things that you believe that's already on file. Just repaper it, submit it in, just to make sure. And on that line, because I plan to bring that back up, because there was that video I mentioned before. I found it. I want to play it. This is Dad's IRA mistake of what happened when he listed his last will and testament to be the beneficiary. So take a look at this.
My father was the one person that I knew.
Let me start that over.
My father wanted his IRA to go to his children. And what happened is, because he didn't fill out the beneficiary form correctly, it went to his wife of 2 months. Approximately 1 year after my father passed away, we learned that the beneficiary form was apparently not filled out correctly and that we would not be receiving the money from the IRA. What he did wrong was not list our names individually on the beneficiary form. When you write, "as per my last will and testament," is apparently not a proper designation as to where the funds will go. I had no idea that a will could be trumped by an IRA beneficiary form. I was shocked over that fact. My father never intended this. He would be so angry. He would be so mad that no one informed him that he filled out the form incorrectly. It was worth over $400,000. I think as of today, it's over $600,000. It's really tough. I'm a single mom. I'm raising 2 boys, ages 9 and 19, all on my own, and it's hard to get by. It's a struggle. It's very stressful. It was really hard losing my dad and then having to go through this. So it was real difficult when she decided to exclude us from her life and to also not follow my dad's wishes and to take the IRA money when she knew that that's not where it was supposed to go. It still takes a toll on me after all these years. And sorry. We were in court over this IRA for, my goodness, almost 3 years, I believe. I did not end up getting the IRA. Then I went into debt to fight for the IRA. To this day, I have not seen 1 penny from anything in my father's estate, including the IRA. My father was the one person that I knew who I was sure had all of his financial matters in order when he died. Even if you think that everything is all tied up, check on it regularly. Make sure your beneficiary forms are up to date, that they're filled out correctly. Because if they're not, the company will not always let you know that they're filled out incorrectly, and you'll find out too late.
So obviously a sad story, but the current wife of 2 months had no legal requirement to have to share that IRA in any way. I wouldn't necessarily say that she was a gold digger. I'm just saying that there's no requirement. The law recognizes the next of kin, which goes to spouse first, and that was the person with the current spouse. So if you don't list who you want, everything could go to the current spouse, and you might completely unintentionally disinherit your children of a previous marriage. And obviously there's the ripple effects that come from that. So that really sucks when the planning was meant to be right and it isn't. And there's no requirement. I mean, like she said, she went to court, she tried to fight for it. No, that's in a way what by trying to fight for you, what you're saying is that the probate court did not follow proper procedure. And no, they did follow proper procedure. You really should be suing the court for messing that up if they really did it incorrectly. But no, they followed it exactly right. So yeah, getting that stuff reaffirmed the way you want it to be, always a good idea.
Yeah,
But
whether
anyway,
it's life insurance, IRAs, whatever it is, they're always annuities, they're always gonna pay the money to whoever the designated beneficiary is at the time of death.
assuming that they're 18 and over. So
Correct.
let's go through another part where this was a recent situation a couple years ago. Someone actually passed away. He was in his mid 40s. And when he did his applications for life insurance, and it was about $1 million worth, I think it was some term and some whole life, listed his 6-year-old son as the primary beneficiary. Well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So what happened? He died in a car accident. And because of that, we had to get papers of conservatorship. Who's taking care of this child? Who's the one that is going to be essentially the representative payee? I don't think that's even the correct term, but essentially, who's going to be in custodial responsibility for these funds for this minor who it's meant for? And there's a whole big old thing on it. And so I think the funds have been paid out to the ex-girlfriend. They never got married, but the ex-girlfriend aerobics instructor, who was probably 10 years younger than he was. So we can guess what may or may not happen with those funds. But what's interesting from what I've heard is that if the 6-year-old son grows up, becomes 18 and over, and figures out that those funds were mismanaged on his behalf, they could sue the agent for having put for improper designation that put his inheritance at risk. So
and that's why whenever I sit down with people and they say, "Oh, I want to put my granddaughter, I want to put my niece or my nephew or my daughter or son or whoever it is," I always ask, "How old are they?" Because if they're under 18, I have to tell them that this is going to, be a problem if it's not set up properly and handled properly after they pass away. And so I always, anytime, especially if I'm, doing a final expense or a life insurance policy or anything like that, there's any doubt in my mind that they could be under 18, I always ask, how old are they? And yeah, because that's a great example, and it's a lot of people just don't understand that.
And one of the best ways to circumvent that is to make sure you get what you want to have done is make sure there's a living trust set up.
Yeah,
That's the easiest way to go. Yeah, the trust will take, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to set up whatever it is in your state. And whether you're going through LegalZoom, I don't care how you get it set up, get one set up. You can amend it later. But you get one set up, you list the trust as the beneficiary or contingent beneficiary. So let's suppose you have someone you definitely want to get the funds first. If you die and they're still around, you want them to get it. And then if you want minor age children, leave it to a trust, have the trust distribute the funds and take care of the funds for those minor age children. That's the way to do it. This is life insurance advice that happens to include a little bit of legal advice. It basically says get a trust if that's what you want to do. But yeah, you just got to make sure that we're doing it right. And here's the thing: if the client completed the form and they wrote it, then they're responsible. If the agent wrote it down, then the agent's responsible. And I think that the line is so fine there that you never know what it's really going to be. That's one thing that's good about e-apps, though, is because the e-apps can track who filled in what. So who knows? But it's a dangerous game regarding inheritances and stuff like that. Anyway, we're kind of slightly off topic regarding behavioral finance and spouses and things like that. But
it's all tied together, and it's an important thing to talk about. That I really feel like it's not talked about maybe enough and gets overlooked oftentimes. People just don't really think about it.
Well, that's one thing about life insurance agents, us in particular, not us, like the three of us, but we're championing the cause that life insurance is a wonderful way to go. And yet we're often so much on the defensive trying to defend why. What is it about life that sometimes we negate or even forget about the other areas of finance and behavioral finance and how things work within spouses and relationship, that we're so focused on defending that we're not always looking at the bigger pictures. Like, this is the right time for you guys. You guys are having real marital splits, and yet I'm trying to defend why life insurance is great. You shouldn't have this right now. You need to be focusing on this other stuff. Come back to me in 3 months. Let's see if that makes sense.
There's always a time to buy life insurance, man. I don't know about all that, but
yeah, well, it depends. A really roaring, by the way, okay, let's get this out there real quick. The spouse that murders their spouse does not get to collect on the benefits. Let's put that out there first. It's an important disclosure. You cannot commit a felony that causes the death of the insured and expect to collect the benefit. It's not going to happen. So, what was the Peterson case? I don't know, it's almost 20 years ago now. A lot. I can't remember, but it was only $250,000 of term on Lexi Peterson, and whatever his name was, apparently, according to court, killed her and her unborn child in order to collect the proceeds. I mean, come on, only for $250,000. Geez. And I don't know if it ever got paid out, and if it did, still $250,000. Really, that's it? You did all that just for that? I would have had it a zero at least, but come on. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
So back to the topic at hand.
So making decisions, making sure everybody's on the same page as a married couple, I think it's so important for that kind of harmony. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a divorce guy. But to make sure you're both on the same page and that you're making the best coordinated decisions possible together. And us as advisors, making sure that we're communicating to both parties that are making the decision, not just one who appears to make all the decisions. Because, here's what's funny. They say, no, I make all the decisions. And at the end of your meeting, what they're going to say is, well, I need to run this by my wife. Well, I'm sorry. You're trying to do my job. My job's to help you run it by your wife. Let me do that part, not you. I can't trust anybody else to explain things the way I did. Because if I were to leave a meeting like that and say, I just met with this guy and he thinks life insurance is a good idea. What do you mean by that? I mean, yeah, we need more, but what are you talking about? That would be my first reaction to that. And then you expect them to explain everything that they learned in one meeting.
And I feel like, most people, most agents, most advisors, anybody that's, held any kind of professional license for more than 5 minutes knows better than to run a one-legged appointment, right? So
yeah,
generally speaking, you want both decision makers there. You want the husband and the wife in the same room, and you want to present both of them at the same time. This, prevents a lot of things, not only the miscommunication between spouses, but also, I can't decide right now. I have to go talk to my wife about it because she wasn't there, and all the stuff. It just makes, I wouldn't say, unless I knew the person explicitly well, like they were my best friend and they were like, you know what, I can meet with you. It's okay. Even then, I probably want the spouse there just so she can at least hear it. So uh, anybody that, like I said, that's had a professional license for more than 5 minutes could hopefully
yeah,
know that.
or at least by the end of that meeting, it's like, look, your only obligation at this point, you're not going to buy right now. I want to make sure that I've earned the right to make sure I meet with both of you next time, and that we're going to meet you. But I don't want you to explain anything as to what we talked about. That's my
Good luck
job.
with that.
Yeah, well, but still, that's the way it ought to be. I mean, you don't have to explain. Look, David's a nice guy. He's got some ideas. I heard him out. It sounds all right. I want your opinion, but don't ask me to explain them all. That's all
So
you
what
got
did
to
he
do.
say?
What did he say? He said that we're doing pretty good, but he has some ideas. That's all you got to
What
do.
what are the ideas? That's the conversation. That's how that's going to go, and eventually you're going to have to.
And then all you got to say is it's not crypto. I mean, you can tell them what it's not. All I'm thinking of is.
Well, I really like crypto.
Oh, Alonzo put this in. This is good. If it's a one-legged, you can only say, the guy told me if something happens to me, you'll get X 100,000 or $1 million. That's good. I like that. No, but really, it's just to show that we're looking out for our spouses. We want to make sure that they're all right. But by the way, I dare any man to find a spouse that would be upset with them for buying more life insurance. I'd like to see where that actually happened.
Your wife would be more. If your wife would be angry at you for buying more life insurance so she can be richer, put it in the comments in the chat.
Yeah, but if she could be better off, not rich, because life insurance doesn't make anybody rich, but it will prevent you from ever being poor as long as you pass away with it in force. So, no, you're not going to be rich.
I'd like to see it in the comments.
Yeah, I like to see that too. If you've got someone to be more upset for buying life insurance than not, I mean, really. So really, I think we call out men for saying, "Oh, I got to talk to the wife before I buy life insurance." Really? I mean, why don't we help you gift wrap this thing, put it in a nice bow, and you can put it under the tree for Christmas. I mean, what more do you need here? I mean, anyway, those are all my thoughts. Anything else to wrap up here with, guys? I can't think of anything right now.
I mean, Kurt, you've been gone for a while here, the last couple of shows. What do you think?
I don't know. I think that's you can get really deep into the weeds just having a conversation about what we've been talking about today. So it's just one of those things where especially when you're talking about finances, you just need to be on the same page. Everyone needs to be at the table with the same objectives and beliefs, and you're all trying to get to from point A to point B, and you need to do that in the most efficient way. And it's going to cause some things to be different and a change, which is no one likes. It's gonna cause that to naturally occur when you're talking about finances, and it's just you got to figure out, it's all about the pain to change, which we know exist.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
And
yeah, no, I'll chime in here real quick. But what you didn't understand until I told you these numbers. Alonzo. All right. So reiterating what Kurt said, I mean, nobody likes surprises, right? I mean, especially if you're married. Don't make any decisions without talking to your spouse or significant other or whatever it is. Nobody likes to come home and hear that you just bought a car and the car payment's $1,000 a month, and uh, you just went out and bought a car on a whim. Nobody likes that kind of stuff or to be surprised like that. So any kind of obviously big purchases or anything that you're going to do financially, at least in my opinion, should be made together as a couple. I think that takes care of a lot of problems in marriages too, where
yeah,
if you're both on the same page financially, then it really tends to help things smooth over. And at least you guys have peace of mind about that, and that you're on the same page and you know where the money's going, how it's being spent, what your savings are like, and things like that. And next week, I think is going to be good because we're actually going to more or less jump off of this one into end of the year tax planning, and we're going to have Brian Summerfield come back on that we've had on before, who's an accountant, and he's going to have some end of the year tax planning advice for us. So that'll be pretty exciting.
yeah, that's gonna be a great session, and looking forward to that. But one last thing I was thinking of that as you're talking, Mike, don't let an agent try to tell you, you know, grab yourself and remind yourself who's got the thing in the family and make a decision rather than actually showing your spouse respect and actually consulting with them first before making that decision. You guys know what I mean, and every guy has probably heard something like that before. It's not about that. You don't need the ego and just doing that. I fully believe in both spouses being on the same page.
Nobody likes a
and
guy with an ego.
yeah, and doing it based on ego, no, that's not good. Even though, yes, your spouse will be better off for it, but still, come on. You don't need to be beaten up by your agent in that way to make you make a decision. The only decision I might say at that point would be, tell you what, let's get you medically examined so that you're covered while you're thinking about it, and then run it by your spouse, and we'll figure out what you want to do going forward. That's acceptable. That there's no
Yeah, as
reason
long as
that if
you haven't committed to anything, right? The insurance company hasn't even accepted you. You have no idea what your rate's going to be or if you're going to qualify yet. So at least that way you can go home and talk about it with your spouse and say, hey, I applied for this amount, or I did this or that. What are your thoughts? And then, if you decide you don't want it or you want more or less after the conversation, once it's approved, you can, go higher or lower in coverage, or you can just outright say, we decided we don't want to do it, and cancel the app. No harm, no foul.
exactly, and that's part of the reason why there's actually like a 14-day free look period after the policy's been delivered, that you could turn around and say, you know what, I want to cancel the whole thing. So, if you paid 1 or 2 months premium, you can have that all refunded back to you. No harm, no foul. Everything is taken care of.
And most companies offer a 30-day free look period.
Yeah, so it just depends. Alonzo asked, do you take premium in that case for a conditional receipt? Yeah, you've got to take a premium for that. That shows that you're committed to it. If you don't take a premium, at least for 1 or 2 months premium, it doesn't bind the insurance company. So it has to come with the premium. I haven't seen it without it. So you've got to take some kind of premium. It doesn't have to be the annual premium. It just needs to be 1 or 2 months.
It can sometimes be called a temporary insurance agreement too, where you pay that first month's premium. And then the other nice thing about that is that if you do that, and God forbid you walk out of the appointment and get hit by a car, or something happens in between being approved, the insurance company will pay if you would have been approved, even if the policy hadn't been issued yet, because you had the conditional receipt or the temporary insurance agreement in place. So there's a lot of positives to that. And of course, if you decide not to get it, that first month's premium would, of course, be refunded to you. So there's absolutely no harm in doing that. And if you decide to get lesser coverage, of course, they would apply any overage to the premiums and everything.
Right. Yeah, they just adjust it or prorate it, or whatever it is that they're going to do. And in fact, one of the I don't call it a favorite video, but Dr. Sanjay Tolani, one of the top insurance agents in the world, he has a video where he talked about that there's this one family, and they asked him regarding life insurance, and it'd been a while, but he finally met with them. He took the app, but the app wasn't completed yet. And so, the guy went, he'd say, look, I don't have my checkbook with me and I don't have all the information. Can I come back in a couple of weeks so we can finish this up? Sure, no problem. The guy died. No conditional receipt, no temporary insurance agreement. So even to this day, if he gets a call from them, he's on the phone trying to do what he can for them. All because if he would have taken one check, that family would have been so much more better off. And I don't consider those things success stories because, the insurance industry is a morbid industry. It's like if a success story means you have to die and everything to say, hey, I did a dude, that sucks. No, I want you to live. In fact, not only do I want you to live, I want the insurance company to live in fear that you do die because they don't want to pay out quickly enough because you got so much coverage. That's the kind of way I want it, the relationship I want. I don't want anybody to die. But even then, people do die. Death does happen. If it does happen, did I do what I could do to help make sure that we got the coverage in place the best we can? So,
and that's insurance 101, right? Insurance is the transfer of risk to another party. So that is basic definition of insurance. You learn that in the first day of insurance class. And so, when you pay that small premium, you're transferring that $500,000, that $1 million or $2 million or $10 million or whatever it is of risk to that insurance company. And they have 10, 20, 30 years that they have to carry that risk for. If it's a term policy or your whole life. Yeah.
But life insurance claims they can be contested, but it's rare. And I say that only because, the contestability period is 2 years. But after that, all you need is a death certificate.
It really only happens in the first 2 years within the contestability period. So put
them on the hook. We'll help you put them on the hook. I mean, some people say, I hate insurance companies, especially with recent headlines, right? I hate insurance companies. Well, those are the health insurance companies. But, hey, you want to make them pay? Get big coverage. How else are you going to make them pay? All right. I think we'll leave this one at that. Everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make it a great day. Tune in for us next week. We will have accountant and advisor Brian Summerfield with us. We're going to talk about year-end tax planning tips. Particularly for business owners, we'll be covering that. So catch you next week.
You have been listening to an episode of the Financial Advocacy Podcast. As a reminder, you can't hold us accountable for any actions you take on your own. Just like all financial entertainment shows, we are not providing legal, tax, or securities investment advice of any kind. We do provide general investment information for educational purposes only, and we will discuss alternative financial strategies that do not contain accrued securities. You can do all of our disclosures and disclaimers at our website at www.financialadvocacypodcast.com. Look both ways for across the street. Thank you for listening and make it a great day.